Decided to close down the News of the World, saying the brand had been sullied by the journalists who broke the law. It's still not clear whether the gap will be filled by another newspaper with a new name, perhaps. So how important is a brand? Let's talk to Alison Stewart-Allen, the Director of International Marketing Partners. Alison, good morning to you. Brands and newspapers, presumably the News of the World brand is utterly irrecoverable, but obviously there are staff who worked on the newspaper who could be put to working for a new brand.
Quite possibly. I mean, it's not beyond the realms of possibility that a new Sunday paper is launched where you extend a brand that already has trust. So perhaps the Sun just has the Sun on Sunday, or you find some other product in your portfolio, so to speak, to fill the gap. So that's very entirely possible.
I use the word irrecoverable. Others have used the word sullied to describe the News of the World as a brand. Is any brand ever utterly, irredeemably finished?
Occasionally, yes. So through acquisitions. For example, in the financial services world, the Bear Stearns brand has disappeared since it was acquired by JP Morgan in 2008. You've had quite a few other brands. Lehman Brothers, for example, is a brand that's totally disappeared. But then you have really interesting examples of brands like Wispa, a chocolate bar from Cadbury, who interestingly retired the brand but brought it back because customers online started talking to the company and each other saying, we really love this brand, we really hope they bring it back, and they do. But the thing that's really important about brands is that they are actual assets, and they're often reflected on the balance sheets of companies. They have a commercial value, and they need to be managed as if it was any other type of asset. Physical asset. Yeah. This is an intangible asset, but nonetheless needs to be treated that way, needs to be invested in, needs to be cultivated, and needs to be either maintained or, in this case of News of the World, absolutely retired. And you know, when it's a toxic situation, as this one seems to be, then that's, you know, why would you want to bring a brand back when it has that problem?
Let's talk about how people switch brands, brand loyalty, and how permissive certain consumers are. I mean, obviously, you know, you mentioned something like Whisper. People are pretty permissive about the chocolate bar maybe they buy on a given day, or the cigarettes they buy on a certain day. But newspapers, you know, there is a view with the News of the World that a lot of the people who bought that newspaper maybe did so out of habit to some degree. Yes, they like the newspaper, but, you know, they've been buying it for decades. Their dad read the newspaper, so they bought the newspaper. What do you think to this idea that actually, come a week on Sunday, they'll not go to their local petrol station or newsagents and buy the Mail on Sunday or the Sunday Mirror or an alternative title? They'll just stop buying newspapers.
Well, possibly. I'm not so sure. It depends in a way how inventive or proactive the other newspapers are in capturing that market, because there are thousands of readers now out there that were News of the World fans who now are looking, as you say, for something else on a Sunday. So there needs to be perhaps some jockeying for position amongst the other papers that are there on a Sunday to capture those people and ideally, you know, keep them spending on a Sunday paper.
Alison Stewart-Allen, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed.
You too. Thank you.
Well, some interesting business news coming through this morning about gas and electricity prices. With that and the rest of the business news is Tig.
Thanks, Colin. That's right. First this hour, the bad news for British gas customers. The company's just announced it will raise gas bills by an average of 18% and electricity bills by 16% from the middle of August. It's not the only supplier to bump up prices this summer. Last month, Scottish Power also announced a price rise from August. Meanwhile, rival energy company Scottish and Southern says it's suspending doorstep sales, threatening 900 jobs. The company says that door-to-door selling